Good afternoon once again to all the participants present here on the third session of Day 2 of ICTiBLANEI-2. This session is on social linguistics, papers on social linguistics. And today our chairperson for the session will be Dr. Wanglit Mongchan from RGU. So I'd like to request Wanglit to kindly chair the session. Thank you.
Okay, very good afternoon to all the participants, all the paper presenters, and also the organizers for giving me this session to chair. As the organizer have already said that this session is actually for the sociolinguistics paper basically, but due to some changes, there is also some core linguistics paper. So there are different papers, like we have from language education, and also we have the cultural language changes. And another one is the, as I said, like core linguistics paper. So I think we have 2.5 hours till 6 from 3:30 to 6. So 2.5 hours means there are 5 presenters. So therefore, half an hour which we'll get. And after every presentations, there will be a kind of a discussions or questions for maybe like 10 to 15 minutes, I suppose, if it's a time permit, if we didn't need that 30 minutes. If it's exit, then we can have a list for 5 minutes kind of for discussions. So I'll start with our first presenter, Toshi Memla Ao. She's going to present a paper on factors affecting the competence use of second language among the undergraduate Ao Naga speakers. So I request her to proceed ahead.
Okay. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, I thank the organizers for the opportunity and the time. And as shown in the screen, I'll be discussing on the factors affecting the competence use of second language among the undergraduate Ao Naga speakers, which is also a part of my research topic, and it's ELT. Before I begin, I just want to make a short notice that I'm staying in a very bad unstable network condition, and right now I'm using my mobile data, so I'll make sure that I'll finish my presentation as soon as possible, so please excuse me for that. And yeah, these are the subtopics that I'll be discussing in my presentation today. Next slide, please. Yeah. Since I'll be discussing on the Ao Naga speakers, let's have a brief discussion on that. They are one of the major tribes of Nagaland, and actually they speak Chungle and Mungsan as the 2 major dialects of the Ao. And unlike the other states of Indian states, especially in the North Indians, they had a lot of resistance when English was introduced as the official language. But then, unlike those states, Nagaland did not have any kind of resistance or objection when English was introduced as the standard, or let's say the official language of the state. Partly because one of the major reasons is because we didn't have a common language for communication, and people were rather happy. And till today, we have no objection in using this English as the common language, or let's say the standard language for the state. And besides the conventional educational institutions, we also have this spoken English courses or other training or coaching centers where English is taught besides that. So so far, English is in a very good status right now in the state. And the reasons why I chose this topic is because besides this introduction of English and the non-opposition from the public towards the English, still there are many loopholes in this ELT area. So I found that it is interesting, and then we'll take a look on this topic. Can we move forward? Next slide, please. Yeah. The methodology I've used interview method, interactions, data recording was also used, and questionnaires, both online and offline questionnaires were used. And the consultants are the undergraduate college students who are ours, of course, and also those English teachers in Moksha colleges. Yeah. So to take a look at the number of colleges that we have in Moksha, there are only 4 colleges, and one is of course the government oriented college, and the others 3 are the private colleges. And the strength of the students are given as written as shown in the chart, and some colleges were unable to give the exact number of the students. Why? Because they have some reasons, like some people they have back backlog, and some student they don't take admission or things like that, so they were not specific to the number of the students, but these are the approximate number of students that they introduced. Now, in amongst these 4 colleges, this one college, which is the government college, they have functional English, which is why I also included this those English teachers for my data collection process. So they have 7 English teachers, and the remaining 3 belong to the functional English department. Next. Okay, yeah. In order to find out what are the factors that affects the competent use of English, let's take a look at the errors. So the most common errors that I found from my data are the basics like punctuation marks and capitalization. Where we have capitalization, the students usually or the learners usually make random errors for like the capital words which shouldn't be capitalized. For common nouns, they capitalize. Example shown in the example, the lawyer, which is a common noun, they capitalize it. And whereas when it comes to proper noun, like Mary came to meet Sherlock here, they made it into small, they use small letters. So another errors that I also found is in the proper possessive pronoun, where we have Mary Sutherland's mother, so they avoid using this apostrophe s. Now when it comes to pronoun, they also usually make mistake on errors on there and there. Probably it's because of the same pronunciation, but these are one of the most common repetitive errors that I found from my data. Now tense, they also use 2 past tense at the same time. Now these using 2 past tense at the same time is very much common, not just amongst the Aus speakers, but I think besides the Aus, the other tribes from our state, they also commit the same error. So these were the common errors that I found. Can we move forward? Yeah. Now, in speaking, the swapping of sounds were very common, or let's say the swapping of the phonemes. So we have O is swapped with U. We have source pronounced as source. We have T and D swapping, where we have instead of saying sweetest, they pronounce it as sweetest. And A, that as that, or A and then itself is pronounced as then or itself. A and E, wind or decay is pronounced as when and decay. E and since is pronounced as since. And K and G, where good is pronounced as good, could, and kite is pronounced as guide. And P and B, where B is pronounced as P. So these are the repetitive errors, or the most common ones. With regard to the sounds, these are the errors that I found. Can we move forward next? Yeah. So taking a look at the errors that I found, one of the factors that contribute for this hindrance in the second language learning was the mother tongue influence. Now, it is obvious that our languages, in our language, we don't have this the voiced t and g, k. But then besides that, these are some of the examples or some of the feedbacks that the learners gave in their questionnaire or I had in their interview, where they have written F is mispronounced as P while speaking English. Mother tongue manifests in the form of incorrect pronunciation. So the sound F is not available in most of the our dialects. I think it's just one village variety who uses this F sound. So whenever they encounter any F sound in English, they replace it with P. So another, and then when it comes to pronouncing of English alphabets, they pronounce M as yum and L is pronounced as yel. Also, the next statement here we see putting na at the end of a sentence. People might say that na is maybe because of other factors, but I should say that it's one of the mother tongue influence factors. Why? Because in the word na is used in every phrase or clause or in most of the sentences in our, for example, we say are you coming, then arura na, so we use na at the end of most of the sentences. So that is also one of the factors which is influencing the second language. And G is pronounced as J while speaking. So if an owl has to read an English alphabet, then they will pronounce something like H-I-G-K-L-M instead of H-I-J-K-L-M. So yeah, and then the V sound is also not there in the entire Zhongli and Mungsun, the owl language. That makes it obvious that V is replaced with the sound P. Yeah. So another factor that I found from my data is overgeneralization could be one of the reasons, because when I asked the questions, do you determine English pronunciation by the spelling of the words, then it shows 83.8. Right now it's around 296 responses data that I have analyzed, more yet to come. But through that also it shows that maximum number of the responses shows yes, and then which is why we see in the data that jewelry is instead pronounced as jewelry according to the spelling, and rain is pronounced as region, infinite is pronounced as infinite, and myth is pronounced as myth, white is pronounced as white. So these kind of regular patterns are found amongst our speakers. Next. Yeah, another reason is faulty teaching. Well, because when asked them, do they learn pronunciations from their English teachers, then most of the students, they say they agree that yes, they do change. It's not just in the data that is shown, but personally, when I ask them, then they say yes, they are heavily influenced by their English teachers, and they consider English their teachers, whoever it may be, to be like the supreme one, the higher one. So usually, whenever anything is done by the teacher, it is idolized and they follow. So when this is happening, we see that there is a lapse here while using the interdental fricative voice. Because when I had interview with the English teachers, I saw that none of the English teachers use this interdental fricative voice, which is why they don't use it. For example, in English words like think, that, though, then, that, then instead of using this interdental fricative sound, they use this t and the. So this is used by the teachers, which is exactly copied by the learners. So that also contributes to the faulty teaching. Another reason could be because none of the English teachers were from linguistics background. So they were all from either cultural studies, English literature background. So that is something that I found from my data. Yeah. Now, the another factor is exposure. Now, when asked them how often do you speak English, they found it shows that the learners occasionally speak English. So, what is occasional? Occasional may be when they are in the college or when they are in a learning institute, and that also very limited access to the English language. So even if say maximum number of students there in the college, they hardly use communicate with their friends in English, rather they use mother tongue, or it's the Nagami most commonly spoken. So it's only when they meet the teachers or someone professional then they use. So that is also one of the factors that is contributing to the hindrance in their competence in English. Yeah, another factor is the lack of proper vocabulary. So when I ask them about these are very common words, mostly used in their from taken out from their books, or which is commonly used even in the society. So when I asked them, they were unable to pronounce it properly. So instead of pronouncing it as butcher, they pronounce it as butcher. Instead of buffet, they pronounce it as buffet. Instead of conscience, they pronounce it as conscience. Instead of unanimous, they pronounce it something like unanimous. And the spelling, there are errors in the spelling. So the boulevard spelling is also written as boulevard. So this, this is something which they probably it's because they are not access. They just hear the words, but they don't use it, or they don't rectify it. They don't try to understand it. So uh, that is contributing to the lack of proper vocabulary. Yeah, another factor is the personality. So these are some of the statements that I've copied from my from the review that I've got, exactly as how they have written. So some say that they find of all the four skills of English, which one do you find very difficult? Then they say that it's the some say it's speaking. It's not because of any other reason, but because I get nervous when I speak in front of others. So that was another thing. And then another could be writing, because the sentence we write must build correctly. See, we find that the right spelling here, there is a error even in this. The next statement we say listening. I find more difficult in listening be when there's something or someone talking about things. I don't actually quite listen to what they say. They don't give my whole concentration on the person talking. So another could be writing because we need a talent to dream big, speaking because of pronunciation. So there are 101 reasons, the personal reasons for them to give excuse. So those are also one contributing to to that factor. Another factor is a family background, because when we take a look into the entire state in general, let's say the Mokshung state, then we find that uh, besides this data, I found that mostly it's the middle class or below the middle class families who let their children study in the Mokshung district. Because as far as my observation is concerned, if the family is stable enough, or if uh, the family is middle class or belong to something higher, then they don't allow their children to study in that particular state. They have certain reasons for that. Every reasons are different. So the ones who are studying in the moksha, their parents are unable to help them in learning English, because either they are illiterate, or uh, there are reasons. Can we go to the next slide, sir? Yeah. So when taken a review from their point, some say yes, their parents help, and some say no. So no, mostly it's because their families are illiterate, and no, they can't speak English. That is the reason. And yes, but then how are they helping their children in learning English? It's mostly it's to do with either monetary or the physical kind of thing. So they are helping, the parents are helping their children, like they buy novels for me so I can improve my English skill, or they support by sending us off to school and even pay for our tuitions and all kinds of necessities related to school works, or encourage us to speak more English. They correct our mistakes. These are the the statements that I've received. But mostly when I analyze my data and then try to get to have a deeper reasons, then it is found that it's the parents are encouraging the students, but not physically sitting them and then having a conversation or then correcting them, maybe in their class A or primary section level. But then as they grow up, the parents are unable to, to help them. So it's either in a monetary way, but either way, it's not that they are sitting and helping them improve their speaking or writing skills or listening skills. So overall, I see that parents are unable, if we have to speak specifically of improving their LSRW skills, then yes, the students, the parents are unable to do so. Either it's because they are because of their poor family background or they are illiterate somewhere or the other. So yeah, these are some of the factors that I've collected so far. And besides, I've also come to analyze that one of the reasons is substandard schooling background. Because, sorry, I could not provide the data here, but from the review that I've received from the English teachers, I found that the English teachers usually say, for the college level teachers says that it's the only 3.5 years of college life degree, and it becomes so difficult for the teacher to make the student or the learner learn the unlearned. So when they were in their early learning stage, whatever wrong or let's say the inappropriate ones they've learned, that becomes a hindrance. So while correcting that, while letting them improve that, then the child becomes very difficult to unlearn what they have already learned before, the wrong ones. So that is one thing. And then they say that the schooling background of the learners determine a lot in their English LSRW skills, because mostly they are from 4 to, let's say, below the the middle class level. So they are not from a very good school background, so that contributes to a hindrance in their learning. Now another factor is marks oriented classroom teaching. It's because either it's a semester system or the annual system, the teachers are given a stipulated time to finish their syllabus. So it's more to do with completing the syllabus becomes prior, or it becomes primary than going and then individually sitting or let's say correcting the learners, whoever approaches them personally. So it takes it's kind of a very difficult task. Of course, the teachers are doing good on their part to correct the learners, but then mostly it's very not possible for the college teachers to to correct every area of the loopholes that the students have, that the learners have. So these are also two major factors which the teachers discussed with me, and I'm trying to collect data more on it. So yeah, uh, I think that's the end. So finally, these are in a very brief. These are some of the factors that I have analyzed so far, and the references are given. And thank you so much.
Satoshi, thank you for your presentations. It was a
Okay.
wonderful presentation. And I think those factors which you have spell out, I think it's across, irrespective of whether which language we speak. These are the very genuine factors which you have illustrated for all of us. And across, I think like across any languages, it is there. We can find even we ourselves have problem in some time, like especially when we talk about their standard English, speaking of standard English or using that so-called standard English, we do have a problem. So you have touched the real issue of this second language learning, especially of the English by the non-native speakers. Now we have question hours for maybe like 10 minutes we'll have. So those who want to react on on her presentations, so kindly, all of you are free to do that. So I give now time for all of you, all of other participants, please. Anybody has questions, please put to her so that she can respond.
Can I come in, only?
Yep. Yes, please, please.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I could not what you call gather all the information. So what is the baseline for what you call standard English in India is the question, because by standard English in India we have already developed some sort of what you call standard English, at least in the mainland. It is neither English, it is neither British English nor American nor Australian. So we have developed our own sort of accent and even what you call all other pronunciation associated with Indian English. And even in Northeast also we have varieties of English. So there are varieties of English within Indian subcontinent or within India, even within Northeast. So we have variety of English. So for us to achieve the kind of fluency in terms of what you call American Native English or British English would be more unnatural in Indian context, and it will be what you call rather. So if I try to imitate American accent, instead of I sounding native, I will sound unnative in Indian context, unless you are not a native speaker, because learning a language has to be acquired from childhood, right? So we have all acquired some sort of competence over the language and trying to get what you call native-like pronunciation. Even if we are so verbose, when you at the moment we are unaware, only when it is controlled, when you are aware, then you try to imitate them. But the moment you are in casual movement, then you switch back to your what you call your own native pronunciation. For example, in the case of the interdental fricative and so only when you are very careful you say thin. Otherwise, I say thin, right? Or you say that. We don't say that then. For so there are some English speakers here, so for them it's so natural because it comes naturally. But for us, it's not natural. We try to imitate them, but in the process of imitation, only when you are conscious you do that. Otherwise, everything, all the interdental fricative becomes alveolar or dental, right? So I don't think that in terms of so the standard baseline would be something that is acceptable at least in Indian subcontinent. Otherwise, even if you try to push that, I think it's not achievable. It's my personal judgment. I don't know. ELT expert can comment on that.
Yeah, I think Potang sir has rightly pointed out, like in context of India, like which one to, consider as a standard English. So it's very complicated issue. But I think even sometimes it happens like consciously, unconsciously, we make a mistake. For example, I have literally, we have one of the, professor who always use S, that plural in everything, whether it's a verb or it's a noun. So he will say like, good mornings. This kind of things are there. So I don't know whether it's a consciously, unconsciously, how it comes, he knows maybe, but then still it just comes out. So these things are there. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Can I say something?
Yes, please, ma'am.
I think it's not I think, but my stand here is not the standard competent use of the English, standard English. It's not like that. But my point here is my research is based on the competent use of English, whichever English it may be, of course. But I'm trying to find the loopholes in the 4 skills where it's LSRW. So it's not about having a very only fluency in the English that you speak, but I'm trying to find out the reasons why people are unable to write a good, let's say, an official letter, let's say, or an essay, or they are finding it difficult to have a conversation in English, even if it's not up to the mark of copying the British people or the English American people. So they have the degree, but they are unable to write a letter or let's say have a conversation. So what is the factor that is hindering them? So the English that they are learning why is it inappropriate? That's the only factor that I'm trying to find out. It's not that they need to have a very fluency in the language, or that's it. Yeah, I think it's clear.
Yeah. I think that you're right. Actually, absolutely, you're right. Whatever your factors you have spelled out there, fantastic. I think there's very genuine factors we see. I mean, like we practically experience it. Anybody?
Yeah, just maybe
yes.
Comments.
Okay, Temsu, sir.
Okay, yeah. So thank you for the presentation. Interesting. So yeah, just to repeat what Pautang has brought up. Since this is a research, since this is a study, we may say that, okay, we are not basing this on any standard, whether it's British or American, but we need to keep that in mind, because there's always something what we compare to that becomes important. But having said that, just one or two observations that if you can kind of group these issues into different categories, like I see that mother tongue influence is one category, orthography influence is another, right? So if one could categorize this, it becomes more clearer where this errors come from. Also, I think teaching, the teaching factor, which you brought in, is important, but I think that's the wrong example to bring in, because I've also taught undergraduates. I've taught them English phonetics, and I've taught them the pronunciation of the interdentals in many different ways. And however, outside the classroom, it just goes back to the same thing. So I think it's not, I think, incorrect to talk about faulty teaching in this context, right? If there are some other examples, maybe that would be better. The last thing is with regard to the "f" and "v" pronunciation, which is replaced by "p." Now, when you say that there's only one village which has the "f," you are ignoring the large number of Mongsan villages who have the "f" distinction. So it would be incorrect to say that there's only one village which has this contrast. Okay, but yeah, it's a different matter that even in those speakers of these dialects with a further distinction, they would still pronounce words with a in English. Okay, so yeah, just some observations. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So, is there anybody who wants to comment or like ask questions?
Hello.
Or else we can, yes, please, you're audible.
Yes. Yeah. In my case, I face while learning English, I did better after understanding my own language, the structure of my own language. I did comparative study with English a little bit, and phonological differences. And yeah, like in school days, I used to take the English as a subject, but later, when I took it as it as like a language, I got better idea about the language. So some of the those students, if we put in their mind that it is you take it as a language instead of subject, it is more helpful. Something as per my experiences. And yeah, like in my language and most of the Northeast languages have postposition, and English has prepositions. So understanding all these small things, it helps us to understand better English. So these all the ideas just I want to share. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Lastly, it's a
okay, please, yeah.
Okay, so very short
Yeah.
remark. One point that I would like to suggest is that English is a very, very tough language. Even for especially non-native speaker, it is very tough.
Absolutely.
So the toughness of English comes at the structural level. Okay. So if we can focus our what you call English teaching to the structure of English, because even after teaching or undergoing education, so we are not able to acquire. So the case is with me, the case is for several of us. So even the way we write, so we rather focus on more on writing, on the structural part of the language, because the structure is the same. Because even if it's for American or for Indian English, the structure, or British English, the structure is the same. But it's advisable if somebody can also try to achieve fluency in pronunciation. For example, the like T, for example, in the word we say data. For American English, they say data. So whenever it's in unstressed syllable, so the ta become the so wanted. So wanted become wanted in American pronunciation. Say wanted or we say wanted. So those should be at the margin, but the priority should be on the structural aspect. So if that kind of teaching, what I call PhD thesis is being prepared, I think this will be very helpful, not only for in the case of now and other type for the entire Northeast. There are certain Northeast like we have lack of coda consonants. So the coda consonants are silent, like ground. So something like, at least to the extent possible, if you can, these are easier to do. So for example, we say I won. So in Meghalaya, I think we say, still many say I want to go. So one, so that the alveolar release, want, that release kind is not there. So focus more on those structural aspects. I hope your work is
okay, I think so. There's a few suggestions also. I think Toshi should take care of. And now, if anybody want to last, if nobody, then we can go for the second presentation. And anyone, those who have not asked.
Well, I just want to say thank you to the professors for this valuable contribution. I'll make improvement in my research. Thank you.
Okay, welcome. So I think now we don't have to ask questions. So therefore, we'll go to the next presenter. Ratnajoy Riang, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so Mr. Ratnajoy will present nominal case markers in Riang. So over to you. Please go ahead. Yeah. You have 30 minutes of presentation.
Okay, so thank you.
Okay.
Good afternoon to the experts and the panelists. And sorry for the inconvenience. So can I start my presentation?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. So my presentation topics is a nominal case marker in Riang. So, sir, can you go for next slides? My outline will be introductions, objective, case markers, nominal case marker in Riang, conclusion, and references. So this next introductions. Riang is one of the indigenous languages of Northeast India spoken in Mizoram, Tripura, and some part of Assam, including neighboring countries like Bangladesh and Burma. According to the 2011 census report of India, the total population of Riang is about 188,080. Riang language belongs to the Bodo-Garo subgroup of Tibeto-Burman language family. The Riang language is used in the home domain and also in the local village market. However, it is not used in the administration and judicial level, else Bengali language is used as a substitution for others level. The Riang language is not taught in the school, college as a medium of instruction or as a subject. The correct nomenclature of the ethnic group of Riang among the people is Bru. So next slide. Objective. The main objective of this paper is the study of the different cases marker in young language. The paper will discuss on the basis of Tripura State district north of Tripura. There are different types of case markers found in young executive, genitive, instrumental, and locative. Now, all the case marker of the young language found in such expression. Genitive case and the executive case marker is case and cases also.
Trezoy, sorry to interrupt. Can you try to adjust your audio? Earlier it was loud and clear, but now there is some problem with the audio.
Okay, it's okay now, sir.
Yeah, it's fine now. Yeah, like that. Yeah, you speak in that range near the microphone.
Okay, sir. The paper will discuss more synthetic structure of the case system in here. So next, please. Next slide. Case marker. A case is a feature that expresses synthetic and semantic function of the elements that carries the particular case value. Most cases can be attributed as semantic function. Distinctions is often made between more abstract cases expressing core syntactic relations such as subject and object, and more concrete cases that expresses various specific semantics, while especially spatial relationships, Black 1904. There are 8 case markers in here. There's the relationship between the nouns and how it is related to the verb express the case marker. The case marker found in the nominative, executive, dative, locative, ablative, instrumental, associative, and genitive. Nominative case. The nominative case indicates the subject of a final verb. The subject may be a noun or pronoun. In reality, the nominative case is formed by adding different markers to the noun or pronoun. The nominative case marker is left. Thus, from left, verb kuno, second group. Left become nominative, verb ku. Now become executive. Then is a second. Give is a give. It will become a perfect give. Thus, give the pair. Another number 2. Gulule hatio sikono roreha. Here, le become nominative. Case hati wo is locative. Siko is active. No become executive. Roman gets. He will give and ha become a past marker. He caught the thief in the market. Next. Accusative case. The accusative case is formed by the suffixes with the noun and pronoun in. The case indicates the direct object of the transitive verb. Sakatile, tasmahano circulum rina. Sakati is a name of the person. No is there. Tasmah is the person of the name. No become accusative. Circulum pen. Give. Mean future verb. Sakati will give the pen to Tasmaya. Number 4, Bunde Ano Bunai. He led nominative the first and not become executive. We will beat Nine in the future. He will beat me. Next slide. Locative. Locative is the case form that expresses the idea of the location of action. The locative is indicated the place of action referred to by the verb in the sentence. The locative marker in the real is no. I mean, Insarale, no was it. First singular, ni becomes genitive, instrumental, around the plural marker, lemon nominative. No mean house, wo mean locative marker, save means affective. My children are in the house. Number 6 is I am sure, how was it? I am first singular, name genitive, instrument count, or mean plural marker, lemon nominative. How do we feel? Wo, how do we mean locative, second and affective. Michael are in the field. So next.
Instrumental case. An instrumental case is the common object case which boundaries instruct an entity that is used to perform the action indicated by the verb. Here is not by the instrumental case. The instrumental case is discussed with the full example. Unless we were by time commentary, nominative, X timing, instrumental, timing card, O will pass. The 3 is start with the X. Another example, brewing role, do by Arno. Brewing does Roman plural marker, nominative, do mean fishing basket, by, do by mean by the mean fish, Roman cats, go mean pass. The girl for the fish with the fishing basket. Next, the genitive case is another common grammatical case. This case is used to signal the fact that one noun is subordinate to others. There is one non-function as the head and the other is the modifier, which some further as specification to the head noun. The genitive marker in is not by name. I mean boxing. This will go when we become the nominative marker. I mean first as verb, he genitive marker, go with house, he mean perfective. This is my house. Monsieur Nila Gusto Clausen. How means to he becomes genitive marker, le becomes nominative, Gusto mean tell, clown long, saying perfective. This cow has a long tail. So next slide. The associative case. The associative case in the is expressed by the marker by to the noun or pronoun. Unless derived by Parakawa Tana, Amin first singular, Lemin nominative, derived in the personal, Ibin associative, Paratamin village, village, or locative, town mingo, Labin future. I will go to the new village with derived. Golku is derived by Golku. Golku become nominative, derived by is associative. Ball, tune, player, Labin future. Golku will play football with derived. Ablative case next. The ablative case is expressed by the suffix India. It is added to the noun and pronoun by preceding genitive marker B. Hai chule mukhauni se karayu. Mango nominative mukha genitive set become here ablative. Cry means for a woman perfective. Mango fell from the tree. Sinkungha no is there for you. Sinkungha is the personal le nominative no house ni do ni adjective semi relative. I mean come woman perfective. Sinkungha came from the house. Dative case next. The dative case is marked by the suffix no in the young language. It is added to the indirect object of the verb. The object may be a noun or pronoun. Piano now became a predicative. Morning would become locative, no become dative. Where I mean wrong, I become D become imperative. Come and roam in the morning. Ni is Sakawa no, you to go. Yours umbrella no locative, no become dative, you instead. The presence perfective. There is an insect in your umbrella. Conclusions. Next slide. Like others to do Burman language or Tiwa, etc. Case marker is also common in the real language. Learn is one of the ethnic languages of the Tibeto-Burman, that many ethnic tribe of the North in India. There are different type of case marker are nominative case, accusative case, no, negative case, O, dative case, O, instrumental case by, associative case by, and ablative case 10. All case marker of young language form in static position. Dative case and accusative case marker are homophonous. instrumental case by an associative case by making also homophonous. And these are the differences. And thank you. That's all of my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, Ryan, thank you. It was such a brief presentation, actually. I think you took only 15 minutes hardly. So, of course, it was it's nice presentations. There were a lot of information we were given about the case marking in Rian. Before, I just wanted to just clarifications from you before I just hand over to some of participants. Like you have there's one particular morpheme like vo, that wo vo, which is which is used for past tense, locative, and you said it's a locative marker, and also it's used as a past tense and also a perfective marker. So I just was wondering, like, how to differentiate whether it's a locative. Okay, fine, it's very clear from that point. But past and perfective, like in some of your examples, you have mentioned one as a past, another as a perfective. So how you can distinguish these two? I mean, like the functions with that particular form.
Or in the
go back in I think instrumental somewhere. Can you
instrumental?
Somewhere in that example I saw.
Yeah, here also, yeah, voice.
I hear perfective, yeah, perfective is there, and in some you use as a past.
Yeah,
so,
perfective, yeah.
In some example you use as a past. Can you go down a little bit in some other slide? Okay, go down. Go down. There. Voice the past. So what exactly is it like? This vo is a past, in some other is a perfective.
Yes, sir, I think so. This one I have to study more. I think so. This one.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. Thank you for the suggestions, sir. It's very important for me.
Okay.
I think in example 1, the free translation is in a past tense form. So I think it would have been past in example 1 also. Yeah, if we see the free translation,
then
it is in
so
past.
uniformity should be anyway. Yeah, okay, fine. So I now give to others like to respond to what he has presented. Any questions, any comments, please, you are free to do.
Let me just briefly come in again here. There are 2 points that I wanted to make very briefly. One is so many of the papers presented on case marking in our context, at least in TiBLANEI. So don't consider the literature on case marking. So for typological purposes, we need to follow some of these literatures like Hespamet on case marking. So or diction and others. So because we fail to take into account that there are different strategies used across languages in terms of case marking. One is the old formula that is given by this by Dixon and Hespamet, based on transitivity. So depending on whether the verb is transitive or intransitive, then what force there. So there is one way of that is the standard parameter upon which it is used. Other type is that we talk about optional case marking. So it is the marking is not dependent on transitivity. So transitivity of the verb has nothing to do with, but rather there are other semantic parametric factors as the one that was presented by our colleague Krishna in the morning and other literature. So there are lots of literature available. And the other type is what you call the oldest type is what Sanskrit model. So anything that is associated with the subject, we call it nominative. And then whatever is associated with the object, we call it accusative. But is this consistent? Sometimes whether this is consistent. So this has to be looked into. That is one thing that I would like to, because for typological comparison, so people would require such thing, because if it is gloss nominative by few examples, but what happened to other examples that don't follow? So we have to take a last set of data where it follows, where it not follow, kind of thing. Okay, so and that is on the hindsight. What about this is on the language is on? What is this language?
Riang.
So is Riang what do you call? We know that it belongs to Indo-Aryan. Which Riang? Is it influenced by some Tibet? Is the influence of Tibeto-Burman of Riang spoken in this what do you call? Mizoram Tripura border? That is the question. In terms of language context, what is the level of influence with other Tibeto-Burman languages?
Patanjali, did you hear the question?
Oh yes, sir. Once again, sir, question says.
Your data collected. Where is your data collected?
I have collected this not Tripura, sir.
My question was, what is the what you call influence of Riang or influence of TB on Riang, or vice versa? So do you find any sort of similarity with other Tibeto-Burman languages, or is purely like Indo-Aryan type, like Bengali type?
Sir, actually, in Tripura, it is influenced like Bengali, sir. But in Mizoram, it is influenced again to the Mizo, sir. Because Mizoram, majority is Mizo speakers who were influenced because we are minority in Mizoram. In Tripura, so maximum Bengali, so it is influencing slowly but slowly, sir, actually, to the Bengalis and also.
But the but the case markers and the structure you have given doesn't, I mean, all of them, like there is no influence of Bengali in it.
Oh yeah. Actually,
my question is there in the chat box. You can check it. Regarding say, I don't think say is a perfective. It marks. It indicates perfectivity. I don't think so. It's like more like it is asserting or giving a declarative kind of a thing.
Yeah, it becomes it will be a declarative, also can be possible.
This doesn't seems to be any perfective marker here in this 9-10.
In Dimasa, we use it as share. So that is definitely not perfective. And you had this sentence number 3, I guess. Sentence number 3. Oh, 2, sorry, 2. So the ha is actually, it looks to me like it is perfective to me. Yeah, because in Dimasa we use it. We use ka, and then you're using it as the morphologically reduced ha. So it looks like it is perfective to me. But wo is not perfective, like Pauline also has stated.
And I have one more, observation here. Yeah, in this one, 9-10. What if you drop this lay in both the cases?
Number 9, sir.
9 and 10. When you say this is my house, if you drop lay, is there any problem? Oh, I need now say something.
Yeah, it is incomplete sentence.
It is incomplete, means nominative is obligatory here, right?
Yes.
Vision.
Yeah.
I have one question.
Okay.
Actually, this lay it doesn't work like nominative, I think so.
That's very strange. No? It's constructive.
Yeah. We also have this lay, but it's not nominative. It's like we say voto. Yeah, voto ऐसा bole, something like in Hindi.
Okay.
We have la. Sorry.
Yeah, even in example number 10, that musu nile bustong. This is a genitive construction, and how it can take one nominative marker.
Another case marker. There are two case markers here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Rotrujo, you have to look it again your data.
Yes. Yes.
Try to polish your data.
Yes.
So this is the point. Keep it there. This is the point that where most of the arguments come from. So the data per se may be correct, but here ni may be performing some role here. What is the role of this ni? So that is not explicated. So that is not explicated. So what is ni doing here? What is it doing? Is it doing some, is conveying? What is it conveying? So so can cow be at the same time genitive as well as nominative? Because the influence is that because ni is already a genitive marker, so every time ni occurs, so you tend to think that it's genitive. It may have the same homophone. It may be ni, but the function may vary. No? There can be multiple variation in differences in the form. It may have the same form, but the function may differ. So one of the complexity of dealing with Tibeto-Burman languages is that we have multiple, homophonous phone, multiple homophonous phone, but each of the homophonous need not necessarily perform the same role. They may perform different several roles. And this role is what interests typologists and what interests linguists. So that is where we have to take care.
And I think your translation has to be corrected. It looks like you should have written this cow, the cow's tail is long instead of this cow has long tail. That would have made it less confusing. So please check that you are also giving free translation correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, one thing I just want to add is that the case markers for instrumental case and associative case markers, these are called homophonous by and by. So usually instrumental and associative, they are, their function is kind of, they give a similar kind of function. So should we just leave it like saying that they are homophonous, or it's a case syncretism, as in accusative and dative? So which is both are known, accusative and dative. Can we call them homophonous, or we should say it syncretism? And I think he has presented 8 case markers. But practically there are 6 case markers. Yeah, here accusative and dative, they are in syncretism, and again instrumental and associative, they are in syncretism.
I think it can be further looked into. I think what Riang has presented must be like, this is a first presentation. I mean, like in very initial stage, he even, I think, was confused in many other aspects of even, free translation, even, giving a small, more to morpheme analysis and all those things. So I think we can give him a time, and then we'll come up with. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Hi, Ratno. I just wanted to ask, like, whether it's possible for, especially with the genitive construction that you had, for the one that you, after this, you added lay, which you gloss as nominative. Is it possible that that could be either like a nominalizer, in a sense where when you talk about something, you're specifying it and you say, this one is my house, but you don't really say the one, but you're talking about a specific house, but then when you say this, because in our language, like in Khmer, we have that in a sense where we say when we are talking about particularity or a specific entity, we say which means this one, but then obviously it's a it could be a determiner or maybe it might have a nominalizing function, as in where you make it, nominalizing a demonstrative in a way. Is it possible that that's it, or it can even be a topic marker as such, because when we say Hitu or this particular one is my house, because out of all the houses there, you're pointing to a particular one and saying, this one, or out of all these houses, this is the one. So is it possible that it can function that way instead of like Sir Pautong said, it's homophonous, so maybe it could be something like that. I might be wrong, but is it possible to have?
Yeah, it may be possible also, ma'am. It may be possible. But actually, ma'am, I have to study a lot this matter, this case. I have to study a lot more. Actually, this is my first presentation, so actually, so I think I have to study a lot this case marker.
Yeah, related to this, I think in Dimasa, one suffix is there, day, like ani bumude, or is it right, Monali?
Yeah, that's what I said. It's a topic marker. That is what I was saying, that lay is exactly functioning in the same way. And that is what Samir also has mentioned, that it's the same way it is occurring in Kokborok.
Okay, I think it's.
So there's a lot of work to be
done.
Yeah,
he has to do.
Riang. Not only him, but other linguists can also chip in, because Riang, as far as we suspect, we cannot conclude what you call with a good amount of surety, but it has a lot of Tibeto-Burman influence. So even with the case of case marking, it's evident. So Dhananjoy has to do more work, and then others who are there at those areas should also look at them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so thank you once again, Ratnajoy. Now we'll move on to third presenters. It's a joint paper by Alindra Bharma and Pinky Wari. So the title of the paper is Error Encountered by Assamese Mother Tongue Speakers While Learning and Using Boro as a Second Language. So let's listen to them. So Alindra, over to you, please. Hello, Alindra?
Yes, sir. I'm just sharing the screen. Yeah.
Okay, please.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Our topic is errors encountered by Assamese mother tongue speakers while learning and.
Olin, can you please unmute yourself?
Oh, sorry. Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Our topic is errors encountered by Assamese mother tongue speakers while learning and using Boro second language. This is a long paper. Anyway, we'll try to, try our best to finish it within the time allotted by the organizers. Boro is a Tibeto-Burman language, whereas Assamese is an Indo-Aryan language. Apart from their linguistic distinctions, these two language speaking communities are also different racially. That is, the former is monolanguage, Mongoloid, whereas the latter is Indo-Aryan. Still, due to the unity and diversity in the country, these two communities, regardless of their different cultures, origins of their races and languages, have lived in harmony. Boro is spoken by about 1.5 million, whereas Assamese is spoken by about 15.3 million in India. Both Assamese and Boro are mostly spoken in Assam. These two languages have different sets of vowels and consonants. The Assamese phonemic inventory consists of 8 vowels, 9 diphthongs, and 23 consonants, whereas the Boro phonemic inventory consists of 6 vowels, 8 diphthongs, and 16 consonants. The high, big, unrounded secondary vowel U is non-native to Assamese mother tongue speakers, which causes errors in pronouncing it, and the corresponding diphthongs like U and Ui. Again, in case of consonant sounds, except the little difference between the Assamese alveolar approximant Ra and Boro alveolar tape Ra, Boro doesn't have any consonant that is non-native to Assamese. In grammar level, Boro differs from Assamese in many different aspects, such as case definitive classifier marking, subject versus agent marking, positive prefixation, adverbial suffixation, passivization, non-finite versus progressive verb suffixation, etc. Other kinds of dissimilarities that cause errors in learning and using Boro as a second language may be found in vocabulary and orthography level 2. So here is a short background about second language learning and error analysis. The main emphasis in second language studies on pedagogical issues emerged in the 1950s and 1960s. It has been immediately followed by the conceptualization and significance of language errors by P. Corder in 1967. According to Ellis, a language error is an unintended deviation from the immanent rules of a language made by a second language learner. Such errors result from the learner's lack of knowledge of the correct rules of the target language variety. However, the lack of knowledge of the rules of the target language is not the sole cause of language errors. In most cases, the non-native linguistic elements and features in the target language cause the learners encounter language errors. One can compare between acquiring and learning a language in terms of language competence and performance of the language users. In other words, the amount of both knowledge and experience in using the concerned language matters. That is, language competence and language performance should go hand in hand. On the other hand, lack of knowledge causes mistakes, whereas lack of experience causes errors. While studying about language errors encountered by the language learners, it is very important to differentiate errors and mistakes. According to Brown, a mistake refers to a performance error that is either a random guess or a slip, in that it is a failure to utilize a known system correctly. All people make mistakes in both native and second language situations. Native speakers are normally capable of recognizing and correcting such lapses or mistakes, which are not the result of a deficiency in competence, but the result of some sort of the temporary breakdown or imperfection in the process of the producing speech. Such mistakes may include slips of the tongue, random ungrammatical formation, typos, metathesis in reading, etc. But errors are systematic in that they occur repeatedly and are not recognizable by the learner. According to Gus and Selinka, the speaker who makes a mistake is able to recognize it as a mistake and corrects it if necessary. An error, on the other hand, is systematic. That is, it is likely to occur repeatedly and it is not recognized by the learner as an error. According to Devi, an error cannot be self-corrected, while mistakes can be self-corrected if the deviation is pointed out to the speakers. Thus, a significant distinction is generally made between errors and mistakes, which are not treated as the same from a linguistic point of view. Here, the aims and scope of this study. Primarily, this is an investigation of the language errors encountered by adult Assamese native speakers in learning and using Boro second language in classroom environments. In addition to that, it also tries to investigate the errors in the normal speech situation of Assamese native speakers speaking Boro as a second language. However, this so-called speech situation is hardly found, as Assamese Boro bilinguals whose mother tongue is Assamese are very few in number. Anyway, this study tries to find out the errors taken place in academic as well as non-academic language environments. According to Ellis, again, the study of learners' errors has been the main area of investigation by linguists in the history of second language acquisition research. However, this particular topic of study lacks literature still, there have been informal dialogues on how and where the Assamese native speakers encounter with errors while using Bodo second language, which have been observed, analyzed, and discussed here. The language errors discussed here are mostly observed during teaching Bodo as a second language to Assamese native speakers at Northeastern Regional Language Center situated at Guwahati. This study attempts to find out Bodo language learning and using challenges realized in the forms of errors in receptive, that is hearing and reading, and productive, that is speaking and writing skills. Hence, all these skills of language use have been observed. Moreover, normal speech acts in household situations and public places are also observed to find out the errors encountered in non-academic language environments. The data mostly collected through observation were categorized based on the different skills of language use and different levels of linguistic study. Anyway, the overall methodology includes contrastive analysis between these two languages. From this point, my co-presenter, Ms. Pinky, will present. So now I hand over the remaining slides to her. Thank you.
Pinky, we are not able to hear you.
Alindra? I can't hear anything.
Pinky, can you start? Olin, can you continue? We're not able to hear Pinky.
Yeah, I think she is not able to connect actually. I was trying to call her also. She's not.
I think you can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
I think you can.
She's here in Zoom, but you can continue.
Yeah. She's not able to connect, I think. Yeah. So we start with pronunciation in the results and discussion. So in pronunciation, the pronunciation of some segmental phonemes in some certain environments in Bodo produced by the Assamese native speakers are noticed, particularly the Bodo phoneme sounds that are not used in Assam. Assamese are closely examined while pronounced by the Bodo second language learners. Apart from the segmental phonemes, the use of a few suprasegmental features such as high and low tone types, high vowel devoicing have been observed and discussed here. So first of all, the pronunciation of high back unrounded secondary vowel is the most frequently occurring phoneme in the most frequently used words in Bodo. It also forms two diphthongs, and o, which also frequently occur in the language. For example, gese, then nung, zung, beer, hui, lung, engkam, day, ko, ne, etc. What happens when the learners pronounce these words is that they replace the sound with the most similar sound available in their mother tongue that is O. So they will pronounce like this. They will pronounce these words like goso, nong, zong, bio, poi, long, etc. E has got the pronunciation of O through writing system also. The Devanagari is the counterpart of Eastern Nagari U, but in Boro is pronounced as whereas U in Assamese is pronounced as O in vowel, is almost absent in Indo-Aryan languages. So the next one is high vowel devoicing. The three high vowels in Boro, E, U, and when put between voiceless consonants, lose their voicing quality and hence pronounced as E. Actually, it's devoiced like respectively, as their allophones. This effect is called vowel devoicing. For example, shter, then kpi, shkar, spoon, then spoon, then stur, fathar, etc. This kind of error is committed due to the absence of high vowel devoicing phenomenon in Assamese. Then we can see the tone features. Boro is a tone language where two types of registered tones, high and low, are found. For example, kha and kha, then ba and ba. Sometimes the learners get confused with homonyms like su. It also leads to a manipulation of the frequency of tone when the learners try to pronounce them with different fundamental frequencies, thereby causing errors. On the other hand, the disagreement about the number of tone types in Boro by different linguists, like 3 according to Burton and Burton Page, 2 according to Halbershoot, 4 according to Bhattacharya, 2 according to Joseph and Berlings, 2 according to Brahma and Sharma, also causes the learners to get confused. However, it also depends on whom the language teacher follows in teaching the language. The most crucial about the tone feature in Boro is that they are not represented in writing system, and hence it is always understood from the language context. However, it is a tough challenge for the learners to understand the context and use correct tone types. Then we can see intervallic glides. The two semi-vowels, ya and wa, are used as glides in some certain environments in Boro. The former is produced at the base and suffix juncture if the base ends in a front unrounded vowel and the suffix starts in rounded vowel. For example, apha. From apha, if we add to it the a suffix, then in between the a and a, ya will come. So it will become aphaya, not apha. The same way, gi, gi, then gele, geleya, like that. Whereas the latter is produced at the base and suffix juncture if the base ends in a big rounded vowel and the suffix starts in front unrounded vowel. For example, boro. Boro plus a, boroa. Then dautu plus a, dautua, like that. Another environment for ear is the juncture between the base ending in a rounded big vowel and the suffix starting in rounded big vowel, that is for example, nuye, skuye. These gliding rules are phonetic in nature and hence systematic linguistically. Therefore, it cannot be considered as a cause that leads to error. But these rules are not common in all such environments in all languages. Again, these rules are very systematic but complex to the language users. Moreover, the general survey on the intralingual errors in Boro shows that these environments not only cause second language learners to commit errors, but also cause intralingual errors. And these gliding environments cause very frequent spelling errors in the language, which is again so much visible and trending social media. Then you can see in the vocabulary, this point of study tries to identify the confusion in the learner's presupposed intuition about some lexemes of the language he or she is learning that causes errors. So in selection of lexemes, we can see when the language learner starts selecting a word to complete a certain speech, he or she often or seldom gets confused in between a few interrelated category of words. For example, using the word alu to refer to sweet potato as gadai alu, which should be tha. Another reason which causes this kind of error is that the phrase gadai alu is a loan translation of the Assamese mitha alu. So we can see in the loan words also. Loan words are usually nativized in target languages, and it interferes in second language learning, as the loan words in the second language and second language learners' mother tongue, that is first language, become different, and it leads to language error in the process of second language learning. For example, sempu in Assamese versus sempu in Boro. However, this kind of error is often struck off the list of language errors. Then we can see in the grammar also, Boro and Assamese are from two different linguistic origins. They usually exhibit many differences in the grammar level, which cause errors in learning one another's languages. On the other hand, these two languages have been influenced by one another through errors, as they are neighboring languages, and the speakers are using one another's languages as a second language. So many elements of their mother tongue in using it. There are some Assamese language have gradually, adapted a considerable amount of Boro linguistic elements, particularly into the Kamupi variety of it. Here, in the case definitive classifier markers, we can see the case markers, definiteness markers, and classifier affixes are different grammatical categories that indicate the systematic relationship between any two constituents. The definiteness of an NP and class of a group of similar nouns, respectively. But Bodo and Assamese languages together have a kind of complex case definitive classifier system that put the learners of these languages in trouble, that leads to committing errors. In Assamese, classifiers also function as definitives if they co-occur with the classified nouns. It leads to committing errors in Bodo, as the learners use classifier affixes as definitive markers in two. But in Bodo, the core case markers, that is nominative and accusative case markers, also function as definitive markers for the subject NP and the direct object NP, respectively. We can see examples here. Then we can see errors encountered in subject versus agent marking. Based on the argument marking system, Boro is nominative accusative type of language, whereas Assamese is ergative absolutive also. These difference causes in committing errors, as Assamese native speakers try to apply ergative absolutive system to Boro while learning and using it. For example, using clauses like Ram Maya Phaidangman. The verb Phai is an intransitive verb. The subject Ram is unmarked here, following the ergative absolutive system in Assamese. But as Boro is a nominative accusative type of language, usually proper names used as subjects in the clause initial position take the nominative case marker as agents do. Thus, the correct form would have been Rama Muya Kuidengman. So we can see errors while using positive prefixes also. Boro, like other languages in Boro-Garo group of languages, has many positive prefixes. There are as much as 18 positive prefixes in allomorphic forms of pha with vowel, then ba with vowel, then sa with following vowel. In Boro, which occurs with a number of intransitive verbs to derive their positive counterparts. The complementary distribution rules of these allomorphs are still not clear in Boro. It needs a very detailed study about it. Whereas this feature is absent in Assamese, and hence the Assamese mother tongue speakers often miss this feature while learning and using Boro second language. However, there is an alternative but accepted way to explain the positive feature in Boro, which is discussed in another slide. Again, there is use of adverbial suffixes in Boro. The agglutinating nature of Boro is seen through different inflectional and derivational processes. A prominent agglutinating process in Boro is occurrence of multiple adverbial suffixes with verbs. For example, thangpa phin margan. So this kind of using adverbial suffixes to verbs is actually not understood, or actually the learners, they are not able to learn this kind of use of adverbial suffixes because these are absent in Assamese. Then we can see errors in use of passive suffixes. The passive voice constructing process in Boro includes suffixation of passive voice marker with the main verb. For example, biyo angzeng homjabai. As there is no verbal passive suffix as such in Assamese, the learners often miss to use it. Then another error can happen in non-finite versus progressive verb suffixes. One of the errors encountered in Boro second language is due to grammar translation method using the non-finite verb suffix nane instead of the progressive verb suffix gasina in clauses in continuous aspect. This is due to the absence of progressive aspect marker in Assamese, which is expressed through the non-finite verb suffix. For example, nang ma khalamnane dong. But this is not correct in Boro because it is used with using the non-finite suffix nane. And the correct counterpart is nang ma khalamgasine dong. We can see confusion in using classifiers also. Boro has a very rich noun categorization devices. One of them is classifier. No doubt it is also used in Assamese, but difference is that Boro classifiers co-occur as prefixes with numerals only that quantify the classified nouns, whereas Assamese classifiers may co-occur as suffixes with both quantifying numerals and classified nouns. However, as they are used as suffixes in their mother tongue, the Assamese speakers often use the Boro classifiers also as suffixes. Again, as the number of classifiers is comparatively higher in Boro, it is observed the learners using inappropriate and limited number of classifiers. For example, Manse Khure instead of Gongse Khure. Then we can see use of error in use of gender discourse suffixes. The prominent sociolinguistic element used in Boro are three gender discourse suffixes that are used in Boro as terminations usually at the end of nominal syntactic construction. For example, boha thangnebra or boha thangnelai.
Alan, sorry
Yes.
for interruption.
Yeah.
How many slides do you have? Somewhere.
Actually, I think in total 38 like that.
So this is what's the number of this? Is that the slide number?
I cannot say right now.
Okay, so you can. I mean, like you have around 8 to 10 minutes. So
okay. We'll
for
try
both. I mean, the question hours and your presentation. So
as much as
just write it.
Okay. Thank you. So in Boro, we use bra and lei in the male speeches, whereas hai is used in female speeches. But these are basically used in colloquial or informal situations. But these are, found absent in language learners' speech. And then we can see, the formal, informal, like a second personal pronouns like nung and nung thang, replacing the Assamese toy and to me, and on the other hand, apuni. But in Assamese, it is actually non-honorific categorization. But what happens when they learn Boro, they think that the Boro, Nung, and Nangthang are also like honorific and non-honorific. And then in writing system, we can see the different pronunciation of so and ha. In writing system, so is usually pronounced ha by Assamese learners. And then a selection of letters. In selection of letters, also we can see the errors, like sometimes they use the short e for long e for short e, like that. And then in letter clusters, we can see there are 63 two-letter clusters and 6 three-letter clusters used in Boro, according to Brahmo and Basumudari, whereas 168 two-letter clusters and 23 three-letter clusters are used in Assamese. Though the number is less in Boro, a couple of typical consonant clusters like dlo and zlo are used in Boro, which are sometimes omitted in writing of the second language learners. Then we can see absence in drawing overline while writing Devanagari by Assamese mother tongue speakers. Then we can see the influence of Hindi also. It seems to be very strange but true when it is said that while learning Boro, it is influenced by Hindi, because Boro and Hindi are two completely different languages from different ancestors, but a common script, that is Devanagari, is used to write both the languages. So if a Boro second language learner already knows how to read Hindi in Devanagari, he or she will commit errors in reading Boro in Devanagari. The most common example is pronouncing words like mono, mun, nokhor, nagar, bol, bule, etc. So we can see errors in the arrangement of letters. Both the Devanagari and Eastern Nagari scripts used for Boro and Assamese respectively are abugida, but the most common error in reading Boro in Devanagari is the secondary form of nga. It occurs above another letter, and hence it is supposed to be occurring before the letter, as the secondary form of Devanagari ra as in Borgo, and Eastern Nagari ra as in Shorgo. Again, the secondary form ngo of Eastern Nagari ngo occurs to the left of the co-occurring letter, which creates confusion in reading the secondary form of ngo occurring above a letter. Thus, the word with secondary form of ngo, like gudung, is pronounced as gundu. Then reading tone features. Pronouncing words with distinguished tone features is difficult for those whose mother tongue does not have any tonal distinction or which is monotonous in nature. And it definitely causes errors in language learning and using. The constructions Mazadeng and Mazadeng are different due to the tone distinction between za and za. Does the former means what is happening or happened, whereas the latter means what are you eating? Then one kind of error we usually see is the schema about certain words and their pronunciations. Some certain words like hagrama is pronounced differently as hangama. This kind of error can be termed as visual error because due to the close visual resemblances of it with the Hindi word hangama, it usually happens with learners who already know how to read and write Hindi before learning Boro as a second language. And then there is a strange error happening while learning Boro by Assamese mother tongue speakers. The coda N, coda na in the CVC syllable type followed by another syllable having its onset is often pronounced as no by Assamese learners of Boro second language. For example, Sansuma is pronounced as Sangsuma, Kanjong is pronounced as Kangjong, then Fantau is pronounced as Pangtau, like that. So here are a few points how to overcome this kind of errors. It is not always easy and usual for all the language learners to use a common technique to overcome an error, but a few techniques may really work. A few techniques of overcoming language errors are discussed here. It is sometimes very strange to see typological linguistic features in a second language while learning it, and it happens while an Assamese native speaker comes across many unknown features one by one while learning Boro. For example, presence of a secondary or high back unrounded vowel, then presence of high vowel devoicing, presence of lexical tones, gender discourse markers, adverbial suffixes, causative prefixes, etc. Those features add beauty in learning the language. Even after so much practice and experience, the learners commit frequent errors while pronouncing tone features and high back unrounded vowel. Appropriate use of causative prefixes and adverbial suffixes, reading the secondary form of ngo, etc. The teaching learning process about this feature is made easy through several techniques. If one has to pronounce the big high unrounded vowel he or she can follow the technique of pronouncing one of the most common and easily pronounced vowel u with his or her lips just spread. Then as another point, we can say to correct the error in pronouncing devoiced high vowels, the learners can adopt the whispering technique of pronouncing the syllable where the devoiced high vowel occurs. For example, to pronounce the word shka appropriately, the learner can pronounce the first syllable sh in whispering mode, then release the second syllable normally. Another point is while learning to pronounce high and low tones in target language properly, the learners can pick up any simple, that is monosyllabic word from his or her mother tongue. For example, the Assamese learner of Boro can practice pronouncing the word ma, which means mother, assigning both low and high tone features to it alternatively as ma and ma. In doing that, the distinction of the corresponding tone features will make sense to the learner, which she or he can apply in the target language. Another difficulty in learning Boro is using causative prefix. One obvious reason behind it is there is there is still much to do to figure out how the causative prefixes are used in Boro. If the learner has to appropriately use it, of course, there is a way out to it. There is a causative suffix in Boro, hu, which can almost appropriately replace any of the three causative forms. For example, run. It is it is made causative with the prefix kurang, so it becomes kurang. But if the learner doesn't know which one to use with this verb run to make it positive, he or she can use the suffix he, like run he. So in this is the conclusion. Encountering error in learning a language, even in acquiring a language, is so natural. When a language acquiring baby or any speaker use to speak a language with limited skills, it is nice to hear him or her. This niceness is due to different kinds of error the speaker encounters with. However, common language errors are not always made by all second language learners, but there are possibilities of committing such errors even if a second language user has a good competence of the language. The errors presented here are so clearly observed in both academic and non-academic speech situations. From this point of view, this study is able to identify a considerable number of errors encountered, especially by Assamese mother tongue speakers in learning Boro and using Boro. However, this area needs further study in detail. For example, the type of error we have studied in another slide in the section 2.6.5. No after a vowel is often pronounced as no needs further study to define it and find out its cause. Among the most challenging parts, this is the last slide, I think. Among the most challenging parts in learning Boro as a second language by Assamese mother tongue speakers may include finding out the differences between the rates of devoicing of front high vowels and back high vowels, using the appropriate tone types, using appropriate causative prefixes, using appropriate classifier prefixes, drawing overline while writing, etc. Thus, most errors are found in grammar level, whereas there are considerable error types in pronunciation and orthography levels too. On the other hand, the most interesting errors are found in using appropriate tone types, which makes a second language learning and use fun. While finding out the errors in using Boro second language by Assamese mother tongue speakers, this study comes across so many differences between these two languages, thereby conducting a contrastive analysis between Assamese and Boro. So this is these are the references. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Lindra and Mary, Pinky. It was, of course, a very elaborate and wonderful presentations, but due to paucity of time, we could not entertain much, because I as a chairman, chairperson of this, I have to make you run, like you have to read it rather than explaining all those important things. Anyway, we have listened to your presentations. I think it was quite a lot, and we indeed gain a much idea from your knowledge from the way you have really elaborated about this, how Assamese people find difficulty in learning Boro as a second language. Now we are running by, I think, 20 minutes behind, so I give only maybe 5 minutes, maybe 2 questions from your audience, please. If you have any some doubts, then only 2 questions, please. Anybody? Or comments? Anyone? Anybody want? Okay. Is anyone to respond? Hello, am I audible?
Yes,
Hello?
sir. You were.
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, okay. Then I think we can. I think no one is there to have any comments or questions. Then we can move on for the second last presentation. Shall we? Okay, then I think there's no one. So we'll move on to second last presentations. These last two presentations are like papers are more or less very similar kind about the culture, language influence on like culture and languages. So now I request Bipasha Padgiri and Deepika Bashya to present their papers on acculturation of the machines, change in food habits. So let's listen to them. Over to you. Bipasha?
Yeah, hello?
Yeah, ma'am, you can please move it. Yeah.
Is my screen visible to you?
Yeah, it's audible, but then you can, enlarge it.
1 second.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a joint paper with one of my students, and she is working on the missing ethno-linguistic aspects, and her areas are mostly focusing on the food habits and textiles, and she is writing her MA dissertation on these two topics. And I have personally been in touch, and I have been working on the missing language, of course not in this domain, but theoretical phonological aspects for quite a long time now. But I have observed that most of the missing speakers are now shifting to Assamese with their linguistic behavior. Now, when they do that, they are also forgetting, they are not using the terms associated with their traditional food habits. So that is the prime concern of this paper. And before going into that detail, I would like to just give you some light on their, vitality, the language's vitality. According to UNESCO's framework, which they have developed in 2003 and which has been widely accepted and being used with for many languages, in fact, all the languages of the world are now assessed through that vitality index. According to this particular framework, missing can be categorized as a vulnerable language. Why? Because maximum number of children speak their language, but in the specific domain only at home.
Sorry, Vipasa, can you put your slide in full screen mode?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
So through this language vitality assessment scale, we can say that missing is a vulnerable language. But by the number of active speakers, because that is too low. I mean, many missing speakers do associate themselves with the community ethnic identity, but they hardly speak the language. They are not active speakers of the language. So the census data says that this is 2001 data. 5,50,000 speakers are there. These number of speakers have returned missing as their mother tongue. But interestingly, when we go to the field, when we read the literature available everywhere elsewhere, by the missing speakers themselves, they say that the culture and the language are dominated by the dominant Assamese culture and the language, and hardly not even 90% of the speakers say that say the language. Now in the 2011 census data, it is said that 6,29,000 and some hundred speakers have returned missing as their mother tongue, but not even 50% of them speak the language actively. So because of these factors, now the degree of endangerment, as you can see, has been listed as definitely endangered. On the other hand, if you see Karbi, Rabha, Dimasa, even Bisnupuria, Manipuri, and Thai Khamti, these are lesser, these are lesser populated languages, but still the number of speakers and number of active speakers align with the actual number that is given in the census data. So that is interesting. Missing speakers hardly speak the language. They hardly, only in some pockets, some interior pockets in Arunachal Pradesh and in Assam, they speak and they actually practice the traditional food habit, traditional textile, etc. So we assess, sorry, the slide is not moving from my side. 1 second. Give me a second, please. I'll reshare the slide. Is this slide visible to you?
Yes, yes.
But it's not moving. That's
Can I share from my end?
yeah, please, Vision. That will be great. Actually,
Okay.
it's not moving when I make it full page.
Okay. Yeah.
Is it visible?
Yeah, it's moving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's moving now. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Next, please. Next slide. Yeah. So through the git scale also, we have seen the we have assessed the language's vitality of this particular language, and we have observed that intergenerational language transmission is extremely low, very, very low. People are because of their displacement due to urbanization, their intercultural marriage and other economic purposes, not the younger children are not learning the language. Absolute number of speakers is 1:3. So if there are 3 persons in a community, only one of them actually speak the language actively. Proportion of speakers within the total population is just 50%, but then it's not a wholesome data. It's just on the basis of some pilot surveys that we have done and some secondary sources information. Trends in existing language domains is decreasing, very much decreasing. It also reflects where and how the language is used, as we know that the next 3 parameters also respond to this particular area. Response to new domains and media is very low because except few Bihu songs and other folk songs, the missing language is not being used in very many domains. Materials for language education and literacy is high. So the government is taking some steps, but then if the speakers are not highly motivated, if they are not proactive in sustaining their linguistic identity, cultural identity, then only government's imposition and some associations imposition, it's not very fruitful. Language attitudes and policies are, there are number of policies which are acting, but then as I said before, without having proactive connection or the association from the speakers, and it's not very giving much of some governmental support could not be accessed in our study. Communities' attitude towards their own language is at present it's very low, but maybe with some revitalization effort and some more domain specific uses, it may get wider. self-assessment of these policies, how these are acting from the speakers and from the communities end is not there, almost absent. Next slide, please. This is a Eastern language very closely related to the Adi community of Arunachal Pradesh. According to Tide's book published in 1987, and according to Post 2007 and Pegu 2010, Missings are the closest cognate of the Adis. Mostly they inhabit in the neighboring state Arunachal Pradesh, and also Apatani, Bokar, Nisi, Bungi. These tribes and these languages are closely related. Some of them belong to the Western Tani group as well. And from the Eastern Tani group, Damu, Bori, and Bilang are the closest relatives of this language. Next slide, please. The Missings who live in Assam and some border areas of Arunachal Pradesh also, they have they were originally a hilly tribe, and then they have traveled and settled down in the plains of Brahmaputra River between the 12th and the 13th century. They are also the second largest tribe after Boro. And according to 2001 census, the population of the Missing was this, but then, as I said, the active speakers, number of active speakers is gradually decreasing. Only 12%, 88% of them are active speakers according to census data, but then census data is not accurate. If you go to the ground, if you go to the villages and see the condition of the intergeneration and transmission, this data itself is it's found to be wrong. The literacy rate of the Missings according to the same source was 60%, which is quite good, but then it can be increased, but that is not the aim of this particular presentation. Next slide, please. Yeah, the influence of Assamese is highly effective on the Missings. Not only Missings, but most of the tribes inhabiting in this area. Assam, there are three groups where the Missing people inhabit, as I said before also, Assam and in the Assam-Arunachal borderlines. So there, the influence of Assamese is very low. But then in interior places of Assam, where which are away from the border areas of both the states, this particular region has highly been affected by the dominant Assamese culture and language. And that is the reason why most of them are shifting to Assamese for their cultural traits and also for their linguistic behavior. In interior places of Arunachal Pradesh, there are villages, but which is not in the purview of our discussion at this moment. We have studied the interior places, some of the interior places of Assam only. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is a map showing where the Missing speakers inhabit, and there are 8 dialects: Sayang, Samuguria, Telu, Oyang, Pagro, Dambuk, Moying, and Sonas. Okay, I can skip this particular slide because this we have already seen. Yeah, the stages of language shift, which also affect cultural shift, is a long process. The process, in fact, has threefold phases. In the phase 1, initial intercultural context take place, which Missings have already passed. In phase 2, as attracted by its wider exposure and stronger competence, the children of the minority ethno-linguistic group are educated through the majority language. So Missing, like any other tribal language in Assam, have been facing this kind of a situation where they are being taught in schools only the Assamese. Not every Missing village has a school where Missing is being taught as a language, as a subject, or as a medium of instruction it is being used. So these are situations. Phase 3, gradually interpersonal and intergroup communications take place more in a majority language, for which bilingualism develops into a monolingualism in the stronger or the dominant language. Recessive use of the minority language leads to the process of its shift or displacement, which might finally lead lead to its extinction. So before the language and the culture entirely gets extinct, there is scope and there is need of revitalizing and reassessing their language behavior. Next slide, please.
Is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah, so missing village is the typical missing village normally consists of very less population, just 50 to 60 households, and most of the missing houses, like any other tribe in the northeastern region, are built on stilts. And next slide, please. And this is the typical view of a missing kitchen, where, as you can see, this kind of fireplace where they cook is called a meram, and an iron made item called kira is used to keep the cooking materials. And as you can see on the screen, there is a 3-storied bamboo frame to keep different food items. The bottom frame is called perab, which is used to keep the paddy, chilies, and fish to dry. And the second one, the middle one, is called rebbong, which is used to keep the earthen pitcher, pumpkin, and some kind of food item that is called namsing. The top frame, which is called kumbang, is used to keep the apong to ferment itself, and some paddy seeds to store, and the gourds to get dry. And the family members, even the guests, can surround the fireplace, the meram, and then they can take the food. They can have the equal access to the food items. Next slide, please. Okay, from this slide onwards, my co-presenter, Ms. Lipika Vaishya, will be presenting. Lipika, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. We can hear you.
Thank you, ma'am, and good evening, everyone. Now, I will continue with the next part of the presentation. So here we have some missing utensils that I have listed. The first one is RM. It is a plate or dix which is made of brass and metal and is the most important kitchen utensil. So they use it to serve rice, and the respected guest is served in the bell metal dix. Then we have bati, which is another important utensil. It is used to make curry. Also, it is used for making local rice beer. Then keeling, which is an earthen material used to keep drinking water in the house. Then we have kudonang otung, which is a mortar, a type of mortar used for grinding purposes, made of wood. And then we have riakotang, which is a stick made from either wood or bamboo, is used in the kitchen to spread cooked rice for rice beer. Next slide, please. So now coming to the food production in missing community. So earlier missing were involved in, they were food gatherers. Surplus production and storage of food were not prevalent. So however, that has changed over time. So now missing, they use various techniques and equipments for the production of various food items. So agriculture has become mainstream in this community. So they produce crops like ahu, lahi, sali, and bao, where ahu and bao are considered to be the main food crops. So they produce various vegetables and also various products like pepper, betel leaves, chilies, and so on, and also fruits like bananas, mangoes, etc. So Missings are also they are fond of non-vegetarian food like meat and fish. Earlier they used to practice hunting, but now they have abandoned that activity and have their own livestock where they collect meat. Next slide, please. So in the next few slides, I have listed some food items of missing. So here we have the vegetable items. As I mentioned earlier that things were food gatherers, so they used to collect food items from forest. However, that practice is not prevalent anymore. So because of many factors, which I will discuss later, so they grew vegetables in their own areas. So here we have some vernacular names of missing vegetables and the parts that they use. For example, the first one is tajik. Also it's called taksek, and the part that is used is the tender leaves. So like that, various vegetables are listed here. Next slide, please. Then here are some of the meat items in their vernacular name, and also the English name is given with the type of eating. For example, the yek tak, it's a pork in English, and it is eaten as roasted, fried, or cooked. Like that, these are some of the other meat items listed here. Next slide, please. Then here we have some fish items. As they collect fish items mostly from the river bodies. So here are some of the vernacular names and the type of eating. Next slide, please. So missing, they are also fond of aquatic insects. So here are some vernacular names like taxi, which is in English is giant water bug, and the mode of consumption is they either eat it as roasted or they cook it. So likewise, the other names are given here. Next slide, please. So now coming to the cuisines, missing they have various traditional methods and styles when it comes to cooking. So these methods are passed down from one generation to another, and it has been observed that women are specially experts when it comes to culinary skills. So here I have the first two. First two are curry that I have listed here. Amin oing and marsang oing. Amin oing is prepared with the small pieces of rice, and the marsang oing is prepared with leafy vegetables. And the next two, namsing and ongo, are prepared as chutney. Namsing is a fermented fish, and ongo is actually the fish in missing, eaten as chutney. So here, these are the recipes that I have given here. Next slide, please. So there, when it comes to changes, it hasn't found that every community undergoes changes over a period of time, and missing is not an exception either. So here are some of the changes that I have that I have mentioned in food habits. So it has been observed that the new generation mostly they prefer food which oily food instead of the boiling system that was there in the traditional cuisine of missing. And then also the traditional drink apong, which is a rice beer. It was used extensively during the occasions or rituals, and was served to the guest. But now it has been replaced with other drinks like tea. Then also vegetables that are found in the surroundings that were used as daily food, but lately they use food items that are easily accessible. So there are also various taboos and traditional beliefs when it comes to missing food habits. However, the younger generations, they are not very keen to follow these traditional beliefs. And lastly, hunting, which I have mentioned earlier, that it has been abandoned by the missing community. Next slide, please. So these are some factors relating to changes. As the first one is the most important, as know that cultural contact is the most important factor, especially when it comes to the influence of Assamese in the missing society. It has not only influenced the language, but it has also influenced the food habits and culture. And then another factor is modernization. It has become a great challenge for every community in the present time. And it has been observed that younger generations are mostly influenced by this. And then third one is like forest and water bodies were sources of livelihood in missing community, but now they they have abandoned those practices, and as the increase in population has led to the clearing of forest, and so those kind of practices are decreased. Now, the last factor is improvement in income, which has led to the change in the lifestyle of missing communities. Next slide, please. Here are some remarks that have been made. Most members of these groups are bicultural and bilingual, and the cross-cultural elements are still flowing in. This has prompted some scholars to believe that the process, if continued in the rising trend, may pose threat to the cultural and linguistic heritage of the group. So this paper focuses on the effect of acculturation of the missing language and attempts to find out the eventualities of a continued increasing practice of bilingualism. And there are two opposing trends found prevalent in the missing society with respect to the missing language. A sense of self-identity and loyalty triggered by fear of loss of ethno-linguistic identity awakened some of the enlightened missings to begin a sort of study on and about the missing language and culture in the mid-20th century. And with the establishment of missing Agong Kebong, which is a missing language society in April 1972, this awakening took a revolutionary turn in speaking, writing, and shaping the language. New awakening with respect to the language and culture has revolutionized the missing's mind to some extent. As a result, innumerable writings in missing and in other languages like Assamese and English on missing subjects have appeared, and new creative as well as critical works are increasingly appearing from the missing intelligence. Yeah. Next slide, please. While there have been some sincere attempts to revive the language and culture missing society, the results of the same are far from effective. So the constant conflict between the modernist and conversionist approach, as well as the lack of streamlined and motivated guidelines for the revival efforts, are main causes of not so successful awareness programs. Lastly, a large section of the missing community cite unwillingness of the elder generation to pass their heritage to the younger generation without active participation and constant engagement of the scholars and community members. This indigenous community will face extinction in the near future. Next slide, please. So here are the references. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bipasa and Lipika. I think you have taken the exact time. It's nice, and your presentations was also very good one. So we were able to know how changes has come up in terms of food habits of the distinguishing community. Okay, now I just give to the audience or the participants to have if you have any questions, then you may put across, or any comments. We have another maybe 5 to 10 minutes for questions. We are already late by maybe half an hour, so we have to take another last presenters for half an hour, because now it's going to be a 6. So anyway, yeah, please. Anyone who like to ask questions, please.
There is a question in the chat box.
Okay. So I think can I read it, or I think like Bipasa can just read it and then respond to that questions. Any one of you?
Yes. Yeah, I'm reading the question.
Okay.
Yes, that's the exact. Yes, thank you for the question. I'm not sure who wrote it actually, but yes, that's the exact point and concern that that is in our minds too. That if the food habits or any other cultural traits a community do not practice, or the younger generation, yeah, thank you, Monali. If they don't practice it, they don't know the concept, then the terms will definitely be erased from their memory, and ultimately they will succumb to the dominant culture. For example, most people who Monali, as being our ex colleague here, they know, she probably knows that some of the missing community members, families, they have settled in Tezpur. Some of our colleagues from Tezpur University, and they have made their own colony. I went to visit their places and saw that they have, created their homes in a way that it's modular kitchen, like European style. Okay, so the meram doesn't appear in their household. They served me tea, Assam tea. They didn't give me, okay, it's all right not to give me apong, but then no traditional food item was being served to me and other guests. Even it was a festival time, but nobody in that missing community colony had prepared their kitchen in a traditional missing time. None of them have actually built a steel house. None of them have a meram. So yes, the younger children who are now born in that house and not learning the language, not practicing the cultural traits, of course, it's a threatening situation. Not only for missing, any tribal community will face this kind of extinction, at least linguistically and culturally, if not ethnically. So that's the prime concern of many of our us, like linguists and ethno linguists.
Yeah, thank you, Vipasha. You just mentioned tea, and I was having tea then, so I just texted. Yeah, I will. Why I mentioned this is because I found that the younger generations, they are more conscious than the older generations. It is just the contrast that is happening, because if you go to Guwahati, there are 2 Mission Kitchen restaurants that you will find, and they are running really good business. And not only that, the younger generations, they have become entrepreneurs in crafting their art or anything and doing it online in Instagram and Facebook. So I find the younger generation, they are more into protecting their whatever existing traditions are there than their parental generations. So that is what I'm observing. So it is kind of a reverse.
Yeah, that's a reversal. Yeah,
Yes,
that's a reversal of fact. Yes, they are being more concerned about preserving their cultural traits through business, and they want to make money of that. That there is nothing wrong in that. Everything should be commercialized, but at home, they are not preparing those food because sometimes the ingredients are not very easily found, like Lipika just mentioned about. You may also vouch for the same fact for the Dimasa cuisine system, maybe. The ingredients are not easily found everywhere. They are not commercialized. Of course, in Guwahati, like cities, the restaurants are running very great business. But the eaters, if you look into the the sociolinguistic behavior, social behavior of the customers, they are not missing. They are outsiders. So as a community, they, even if they are commercializing their cultural behavior, that there is nothing wrong. In fact, that should be the situation. But at home, the practice is
much less,
next to none, actually. Yeah, it's missing.
Okay.
There is another question. Is the word bati for a type of yeah, that Lipika can say. Also, is there a shift in religion? Missing religion. Yes, in Majuli, I have observed that most of the missing community members are not, practicing their religion. They are some of them have shifted to Vaishnavism because of the prominent and dominant cultural trait in Majuli, and that was my prime field area actually. In Lakhimpur also, I have heard that most of the actually there is intercultural mixing also. Most of the households have married Assamese girls who, along with themselves, bring their their own Assamese way of religion. So religion also is affected to some extent. About the word bati, some of the missing speakers say that it's their word, and we think that it's Assamese word. So yes, there is a scope to revisit this particular word. Lipika, please note down this. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. In continuation of what the Temsu has asked you, like since there's a shift of religion, so therefore, did you all look at from to understand this cultural change and that's happening due to religion? I mean, for example, people are no more like practicing taboos, or maybe in terms of having becoming non-vegetarian from vegetarian or vegetarian from non-vegetarian, like vice versa. Do you see any religion influence in that?
Yeah, Yuanglit, this is a very interesting question actually. But let me clarify. This is one part of what Lipika, my MA student, is writing on her dissertation. She's focusing mainly on food habits and textiles. All right. Religion, of course, does play a role, as you said, but that had not been looked into in much detail. And when I went for my own fieldwork, my focuses were mostly on the theoretical phonological aspects. Now that she is working on the ethno-linguistic part, we jointly come up with this idea. But yes, religion can also be one area from where cultural, acculturation is happening. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think then now that we'll move on to last presenters. So I think we have Monali. Hello. Organizer, can we move on because it's only the 6th? So
yeah. Please.
Okay, then please then I request Dr. Mary Kim Hawkif and Pranjit Dewey to present the impact of globalizations on endangered languages and culture with reference to Tibeto community. So please.
Pranjit, good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Today I'm going to present the topic name of the topic is impact of globalization on endangered language and culture with special reference to Tibeto community. The objective of my paper is to observe the importance of globalization on tribal culture with reference to Tibeto community and the merits and demerits of globalization towards the endangered language. Tiwa is also known as Lalong. It's a Bodo-Garo language, belongs to the Tibeto-Burman subgroup of the Sino-Tibetan language family. Tiwa is spoken in Nagaon, Karbi Anglong, Morigaon, Kamrup, Metro, Golaghat, Jorhat, Lukhimpur, Dhemaji district of Assam, and also in Ribhoi district of Meghalaya. Although among all the districts, only Tiwa spoken people, that means only Tiwa speakers that are our own language, Nagaon, Karbi Anglong, and in some portion of Kamrup districts we found, but in Golaghat, Jorhat, Lukhimpur district and Dhemaji, there are also Tiwa people are there, but they don't speak Tiwa language. These are almost shifted to the Assamese culture. They give their identity as a Tiwa, but they speak Assamese language. The Tiwa community is known by different names based on their areas of settlements. The people who live in hills are known as Hajowali, foothills known as Datiali, plains are known as Puluwali. Among these three settlements, the Hajowali who are maintaining their language, culture, everything they are maintaining, but in the Foothills area, which is called as the Datiali, somehow they are maintaining, means it can be called as a 50-50. Some of them know their language properly, but some they don't know. Even in the case of culture also, some of them are maintaining, but in case of plains, they are maintaining, some of them are maintaining culturally, but they don't know their language properly, so almost they are shifted to some culture. So according to 2011 census, the total population of the Tiwa community was 3,71,000, and out of this population, only 31,421 can speak the language. This is the map. So in Northeast India, many communities are found which are very rich in their trade, indigenous culture and customs. Although all these communities survive side by side, their culture, language, dress, food habits are unique from one another. Like other communities, Tiwa community is also very rich in its own culture. Being a scheduled tribe, this community is lagging behind in terms of economy and literacy rate. For each cultural rituals, each community perform different folk songs and dances. Your people are still practicing the oral transmission method, where the elder generation teaches their all the folk song, dances, etc. in the male dormitory called samadhi. The globalization refers to the accelerations of global movements and exchange of people, goods and service capital, technologies and cultural practices. It creates an opportunity for the people to integrate their traditional culture with the modern life society style. Globalization does not mean the imposition of English only. Instead, it can refer to the imposition of different languages in various contexts. Each impact of globalization must be considered in the context of the particular conditions and environment of a specific ecology. In many countries, the language of commerce gets more priority than the indigenous language because they are not economically viable. It has taken the active role affecting the oral transmission traditions over generations. The impact of globalization on endangered language and cultures. In these cases, migrations is one of the important methods because when the Tiwa community, mainly Tiwa people are settled in the hills area. I'm talking about the migrations. Slowly, in early days, they migrated from hills to the plains area and they settled in different regions in the plains area. When they came to the plains regions, they slowly tried to adopt the dominant culture of that area, and slowly they started using all the language that are used by nearby. So slowly, day by day, they started following the dominant culture and the language that are used nearby. So in Assam, since Assamese is the dominant language of Assam, so they started following all the dominant cultures, the way they use, the way they practice everything, even the household materials, even the dresses, everything. Even in some portions of the plains area, they converted. Actually, the conversion, which we're talking about the last papers that they were discussing, the conversion was also a very important matter in that cases when they came to the plains area, because most of them they have shifted to Vaishnavism in plains area. So slowly, when they shifted to Vaishnavism area, they slowly left there all the traditional, even the food habits. Even we use all these pure people use pork meat, even the rice beer and all. They were prominent in every traditional cultural rituals. They use all these without sacrificing. Nothing, it's incomplete. So slowly, when they converted, slowly they forgot their own language, own culture, everything, their origins. Integration of language and culture. What I say, that one is also as a they merge the language and culture to everything to the dominant area. Especially nowadays, everything they are practicing what the nearby people they're practicing means. Even now, especially since we have many traditional cultural rituals or festivals, what to celebrate in the hills area, but we don't find all these festivals or the rituals that are found to be practiced in the plains area. Even the education systems. When we say the education system, since before in earlier days we don't have education system only just in this year 7 February, government launched the missing Bharatiya and Devari will be introduced as a medium of state medium of instruction till class 5. So in earlier days, our TY student used to go to English medium school or in Assamese school. So since they don't have any mother tongue level school in the primary or in the upper level sections, so they so in that level, that all the students, they are taught in English medium or slowly in Assamese medium only. So day by day they are shifting. They forgot what their language is. They don't use them in schools. They use in most of the domains, in even in the school domains or even in the house domains, they started using the English or Assamese. So slowly day by day they forgot what their original language means, the Tiwa, the mother tongue. Living style means housing styles or everything. The Hills Tiwa people, they had different houses, means the main houses is known as a Nobaro. That one house where they worship, the main post of that house is known as a Dhungapang. But all this, the Nobaro is not found in the plains area, nor in some in foothills area. Even myself, I am Tiwa, but we don't have that Nobaro house because we have shifted almost to the society which are nearby. So when we don't build or don't keep all these traditions, slowly day by day, all these the traditional house systems or the food system will be completely extinct. So food habits, even the food habits, also it's the same. They have converted all this nowadays. It's a very popular that Korean styles or there are many recipes which we don't remember, which I don't remember, that are popular in the town areas. So most of the people who are migrated from the plains area, from or the hills area, they started using all the food habits material or food habits or recipes name. They left what their origin or the food habit items, what they were using in earlier days. So even the dressing styles. So everything is now dressing style also is completely gone shifted to the modern styles, because in earlier days what we use is we have own our traditional dress, everything. So in earlier days, all these dress, it was popular in every houses of the Cuba community people. But nowadays, if we go to the plains area, we don't find it's a very rare, even in the foothills areas. So in that case, we have to preserve our dressing style, also dressing style, even in the what to say, our dress codes also. So use of folklore, folk cultures. So since our Tiva community is an orally transmission community, so all the food have, all the language, culture, rituals, folk songs, there are many prayers, there are many rituals, there are many dances which are not documented properly, and use of all this culture are extinction day by day. Even when we come to the when we compare to the foothills area, hills area, and plains area, we find a lot of difference, because in hills area, all these are still be practiced. It's completely opposite. They don't know even some of the names of the some festivals also. There are, because each clan, we have different clans and we have different identities. One is called place of identity and one is called family identity. The family identity is known as a clan, and the place of identity we known as our Tiva community is the place of identity is called as fort. So each fort we cannot celebrate one festival. So but in plains area, they celebrate everything together. They don't have any burdens. They don't have any restriction. But in hills area, we cannot participate one rituals by the other village peoples. So means other fort peoples. So there are some restrictions. There are some rules and regulations are there in hills area. But even in the foothills area, it's not common. It's same like the plains area. The cultural practices. There are many lot of cultural practices which have been used in our day-to-day life. Even means the festivals, even the pujas, even when we go to before paddy also, before planting paddy also, before any comes also. Now we are celebrating Sogra festivals. It's a welcoming of this monsoon seasons. So there are many festivals like Munyari Kanti, Yangli, Wansua, Kaplan Rava. So all these are festivals are not popular in the hills area, in the plains area. Only one common festival is the plains and hills area used to celebrate. That one is Junbil Mela. So among all these, no other festivals, all the festivals that the hills area celebrates is not found to be practices in the plains areas. So this is the impact of globalization that endangered language and culture we are facing problems. So there are some merits and some demerits of the globalization. So some of the merits are interest to work more on lesser known language. So since before it was not popular, when we were before we don't know what is happening on the hillside or what is happening there. But nowadays, since it's completely so we are more impressed what to do, what not to do. If it was in earlier days, if it was not popular, means not technologically advanced, I were not presenting this paper at right time. So these all, for that reasons, the interest, it can be said that the globalization etc. Yes, awareness of, because in earlier days we were not aware if some festivals was happening in the hillside or in the foothills. So we don't know anything. But now due to social media and the YouTubers, we know everything where it is happening, what is happening, because they share it immediately. So for that case, it is very important. It is very easy for us to know what is happening there, what it will be, and when it will be. And documenting, archiving in digital form. So due to the globalization and technologically advanced, it's very it's we are having means what a positive impact for documenting and archiving in indigenous being an endangered language. Since it's an endangered language, so documenting and archiving is a very important matter. So until and unless it's archived in a digital form, it will not be archived properly. So archiving in a digital form is a very important matter for the endangered language. Multilingualism. So when we cannot stay without multilingualism. Multilingualism is also it can be also be a positive factor. It can also be a negative factor, because when we are multilingualism, we try slowly shift it to other language. We code switch, code mix one language, and we don't use one language, means one monolingual. We cannot be we are not monolingual, and we code switch different language and we speak. Generally, we also speak by borrowing other language words, by code switching and code mixing. But when we monolingual, we get the exact data. So nowadays, just because of globalization world, it's very difficult to find the monolingual people. But when we go to other world, for that reason, multilingualism is a very important. And for that reason, I have kept uh, this one in merit sections. So demerits, language dominance, also demerit section, when it will be more a globalization world, that the lesser known language is a more in a critical danger or in a extinct level. So it is the most possibility to be in endangered language. So one of the endangered level is possible in demerits and language dominance. Since I have said that when the dominant language will come to the over the endangered or lesser known language, it's a very negative for us, for the endangered language community people, for the globalization influence of other cultures. Due to globalization, influence of other culture is very popular nowadays. Lot of influence the Western cultures are inflecting very much. Even the music, even the cultures, even the how they sing, even the accents of talking styles also, and even when the kids used to watch all these cartoon serials and everything, they use the prompt, what they use, it's completely influence of other culture. Even what I said, multilingualism. So these are the some of the I have kept screenshots. They use different language for communicating in the social media. Even they use talk when they talk in social media. Some of them used to speak only in Tiwa language also. Recently, few days back, one popular singer came. He did not sing Tiwa song, so they fought everything in Tiwa language. Why he did not sing Tiwa language? He came to Tiwa festival. So like this, nowadays, all this as Monale in the last presentation comment section, he He said that the youth generation are more actively or more positive towards the saving their endangered language. Likewise, when I talk about the Tiwa community of the younger generation people, I have also seen that the Tiwa community people or younger generation, they are more positive towards saving their endangered language and culture. So when I went to I asked different people of domains of language use in society. First, I come to the society section. When I asked the Tiwa Hills people, they speak Tiwa only. And when when it is in foothills area, they speak Tiwa or Assamese. But in plains area, completely plain Assamese. In community, Tiwa or Assamese. In hills area, foothills area completely Assamese, and plains area Assamese. Church, they speak Tiwa. In plains area, since they don't have church, so they in temple or any religious practices, they speak Assamese only. Even in hills, in temple also, they speak Tiwa only, and even the cultural rituals which they play, the hymns which they sing, everything they do in Tiwa only. But in plains and full area, completely Assamese. Rituals, everything in Tiwa in hills area and Assamese in both in full hills and plains area. And these are the domains of language. Observations. Language, folk songs, stories, etc., which are orally transmitted from one generation to the next generation, is most significant features of the community. It serves as the linking association between present-day life and to the past. It also functions as an important role in one specific ethos and belief system. In the ongoing rapid globalization process, there is an urgent need to preserve the rich culture of the Tiwa community. Recommendations. Public awareness program as workshops, seminars should be organized among the community from time to time. Government and NGOs should take initiative for the preservation of the language and culture. Documentation and digital archiving is a very important matter for the endangered language. These are my references. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pranjit, and also like Kim, for sharing your observations on how like globalization has impacted on the language and culture of especially of the Tiwa community. And also I must thank you for keeping the time, because you have taken only 20 minutes and then we have another now 10 minutes for question time. So anybody who want to know more about what Pranjit has presented, I think you can share, or either you can comment or you can ask questions to him, either of the presenters. So I now give to all of you the time that you can ask questions.
I want to ask one question to Pranjit regarding the use of the Tiwa language in social media. I have also noticed that they use the language, but sometimes I find that they use it to codify, the language in a way that nobody is harmed. It's like they use it for restricted domains. They don't want others to know what they are discussing. Is that what you have noticed? The kind of comments, the content of the comment basically denote that it's only for the group and not for the outsiders?
Yes, ma'am. I have seen different comments in that section also, what you have said. But it's not for particularly people. They translate into Assamese also, since they know Assamese, they are multilingual also. So in between, in the end of that comment, they write it Assamese also very clearly. So it's very helpful for the language learners also. What they are saying, it's and what they want to say, it's very clearly written since it's Assamese, so we can understand and learn that comment also. From that comment also, we can learn it.
So basically, you mean that they use mixed comments or mixed languages to write comments? Okay. So it's not like they're using it as a group language, but they're just using it based on their choice.
Yes.
Anyone?
Yeah, I have the same question that I asked to that Mar lady.
Okay, please.
Sewa, what does sewa exactly mean? Is it thank you or Does it mean
like,
anything else?
Namaskar, sir. It's like namaskar.
Acha. So
Yes.
it does not exactly mean thank you.
No, sir. It's Seva. It's namaskar. Yes. Like in Assamese, we used to say namaskar.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone now? Still, we have time. Maybe, like say, like 5 minutes we have. Is anybody who wants to ask or give comments? I think, yeah, yes. Anyone? I think then we can wind up. Right. So before I think there's no one to ask questions or give comments. So I'll just I may take 2 minutes just to reflect what the presenters have so far, share their knowledge on different themes. So there were 5 papers which we are on different themes. For example, 2 papers were on language educations, and another 2 papers were on like language and cultural changes, and then there was one more paper which was a core linguistics on core, like which was presented by Ratna Join. Now all of them, they have indeed presented very well, and I think we have learned so much about all those, different knowledge which has been shared by the presenters. And of course, we will go with this knowledge and then look, and for more, to get more knowledge in days to come. And also those presenters will relook into the work which they have done. If they have something, if they have missed it, if they want to do better than what they have presented, then I think it's like they should go forward. And I must, beg a pardon, because I think I have allowed 30 minutes more, so therefore I could not resist actually. Because it's not always good to stop or interrupt somebody like who is spontaneously, sharing the knowledge. So therefore I was not able to do that in some case. But anyway, it was, all of you have, kept the time, and thank you all the presenters and also the organizers, Monali and Bijan Kumar, and all others, my senior, some of our colleagues, and also the Uncle Moshel, who is always there. I've seen him in all, conference or seminars conducted on the languages. So thank you, all of you. And now I hand over the turn to the organizers. Please. Thank you.
Thank you, Wanglit. Grow more younger.
Okay, Uncle, thank you. Sure.
So thank you, Dr. Wanglit, for chairing the session. And we're perfectly fine with the extension of the time that you have taken, because we have also announced that there is no more session after this. So there was enough time, and you have done it very wonderfully and coordinated with the participants and the presenters. So thank you once again. And thank you to all the presenters for your diverse presentations, and to the participants for being a part of the discussion. So thank you once again. And I'd like to pass it over to Bijan for any announcement.
There is no such announcement. We will be sticking to our schedule for tomorrow. So as usual, it will start by 9, and there will be 4 sessions. So we look forward, all our participants and today's presenters and yesterday's presenter as well, to be there on tomorrow, which is the last day. So if there is any changes, then we will try to update in the morning, maybe in the mail or maybe in our WhatsApp group. So thank you very much once again, everyone.
Good night. Thank